Hello, hello, hello. I'm just going to allow a few minutes to go live, and then we're going to get into today's chat. Are we live? We are live. Cool. I'm just trying the new YouTube live dashboard. Doesn't actually work, doesn't show the stream, still registers it as offline. And we're not offline because I can see myself, so we're actually online. So that doesn't work. Anyway, welcome to the big friendly conversation about mental health with me, Jake Symons, for the next about half an hour. I'll be talking about mental health. There's no script here, so if you're new here, there is no script. It's basically we talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'm kind of guided by the chat as to what that actually is, and it's just a time to kind of reflect on the week ahead and just enjoy it, really. Let me know if you're here and if you're watching today, and get involved in the chat. The eagle-eyed among you may know that we didn't have a chat yesterday. That is because Mental Monday has now gone down to every 2 weeks. So I will probably be talking about that a little bit now to start with, and then we'll move into other things depending on what you guys really want to talk about. So as I said, next half an hour, the time is really what you want to talk about in the chat. I'll talk about what I kind of have been going through, and we'll just enjoy it. So the reason why we've gone down from an episode every week, so this was on every Monday, it's now every other Monday, that is because of content. And there's not enough interaction really in the chat or in the kind of conversation to actually need chat every week. So we've gone down to every other week, which hopefully then gives me more things to say and becomes less boring for you to watch, I guess, an episode every week when it's basically me saying the same thing. So hopefully putting that breaker in place will mean that the things I say today and the things I say in 2 weeks' time when we have our next live chat, there's more things would happen, and there'd be more things to talk about, and it would be a bit more comfortable rather than being every week. Depending on how that goes, we may go back up to a week if things start getting busy and popular, but at the moment there's not really that many viewers here, so I think once every 2 weeks is a good balance. On a personal note, it is quite difficult to find things to talk about at the moment with mental health when every day is the same inside. As we're in the shielding category, I don't enjoy the kind of outside as much as maybe those going back to work. And it's basically the same things every day. So there's not really much to talk about at the moment. Obviously, as a lot more things change, we'll see where it goes. And that is kind of why I've moved it. Interested to know your thoughts on that. I haven't had any messages through, so I hope no one's noticed. I did change the thumbnail to be this week rather than next week, so you could see that the next chat and the date, and I always put the date on there if I remember to change it, which hopefully I do. But yeah, I haven't really been doing that much with mental health. I did publish a blog post last week, which is an updated version of my 5 mental health tips. I decided to go in and add another 5 for the person listening as well as the person talking, because obviously when you're talking about mental health, as many of you will know, the other person kind of matters in the conversation, and their actions, the way they react, can really have an effect on us. So that post was kind of expanded to not only just be how you could maybe how I and my tips on how I open up about mental health. Hopefully you find them useful, but actually how you can listen to a conversation, and having experienced the good, the bad and the ugly when it comes to mental health conversations. That's anything from a yay, I've got mental health too kind of good reaction to a it's alright mate, you know, it's nice reaction, to a I don't even know who you are anymore reaction, which obviously isn't the greatest. So it's kind of that scale, and actually that matters. And I was searching around for it because I've been updating some of the old content on my website, and actually there's not many that talk about both together. So there's like guides that talk about, say, 5 tips for talking about mental health yourself, or 5 tips for having someone talk about you, but no one seems to put them together. And I thought that was slightly weird, because to me it's a conversation, so they naturally go together. You're listening, and you're talking back, or you're talking yourself and then listening to the responses you get back. And I just put them together because I thought that was the best way of doing it. So I didn't go with 2 posts on that one. So that is on the website under my mental health page. So you're welcome to have a read of that. It's in 2 parts. And yeah, I'll share a couple of my tips. I have it up. Then, just to kind of get the ball rolling today, is part 1 is all about, you know, creating the space to talk. That's my first tip. And I think with this one, I may do a video on it. I know I said I wouldn't do any more mental health videos specifically. I think I'm going to delete that video and actually do mental health videos, because I'm very indecisive. That's one of the things, is kind of the self-judgment that goes on, and the kind of, you know, giving up, which I'm now learning not to do. And I'm actually going to kind of keep my side projects like this one going. I decided not to do any mental health videos anymore when I thought that talking about mental health made it worse, and actually it didn't. My mental health was just getting worse. And actually, by talking about mental health as I'm doing now, and actually saying that, you know, actually I've not been that great. And by saying that, I realised actually, you know, that's not a problem. So I started this back in Mental Health Week, and now we're back. So, quick pivot of the channel. I'm trying to fit more marketing content in as well, because I have no marketing content that's useful on this channel. And as this is meant to be for marketing, it will kind of have to be a half and half. And I'm going to try and get that right balance, but I do want to bring you that content. I could create a separate channel, but I don't want to do that because the content is part of me, and I think that when I talk about mental health, I'm not treating this like a business or like a project. So I'm not running these accounts professionally. As you can tell by the terrible setup, this is not a professionally run thing. It's the most comfortable thing that I feel, I guess, and I'm trying to get that right balance, which is quite difficult, especially when they're 2 very different things. So I'll be maybe doing this in a video as well, but I may not. so that's kind of that. So anyway, let's get into the tips. The tip number 1 is creating the space to talk. And I think this is often overlooked, or often looked at too much. So by overlooked, it's just trying to have a mental health conversation in like a rowdy pub, or kind of outside in a public busy place, such as, you know, walking through Westfield or something. It's not the best location maybe to have the mental health conversation. Or you may be the opposite of me and actually find that being kind of outside your house and outside your safe environment means that you're more protected in the conversation. I'm not I can't really see the other point of view because I don't have it, but I know it's there. So that was a terrible explanation, and I'm sorry. But then there's kind of the other end, which is, you know, sitting down, table, notebooks out, especially if you're talking to people who are quite forensic about it, or think there's a formula to what you're going through, and actually asking like, so what do you feel then, and like, you know, jotting it all down, and it doesn't, can I say this to you, can I say that to you, and I feel like getting the right balance with actually where you have the conversation, so you're kind of not overly formal about it, which I probably need to tell myself doing these live streams. It does kind of go into a bit of a formality, and I think that's another thing I'm trying to work through. And then there's also kind of being too open with it. So actually finding that relaxed, kind of calm place where you're able to have the conversation, but where you'd also be able to have other conversations as well. And for me, I think the biggest thing is not making mental health the only thing, and actually having other conversations and having space where mental health doesn't matter as much. So this depends kind of where you are on your recovery journey. Kind of as I'm recovered to the point I feel happy and I'm able to do everything I want to do. Obviously lockdown, but in terms of mental health, I can do everything I want to do, and I feel like I've recovered enough. I wouldn't say I'm better. I still have low moments, obviously. Everything's still excuse me. Obviously still everything affects me, but I feel like I can deal with that, and I can manage it, and I can manage what I'm going through, and I feel like to me that's recovery. So I guess for me, it's actually, you know, it's okay not to talk about mental health all the time, or not, you know, walk on eggshells around me, or, you know, do the whole worry about what you're saying. I feel like it's definitely being a bit more fluid and having a laugh and making mental health something really small in certain moments. So, for example, up pre-lockdown, going out with the lads, it's mental health doesn't come into that in that moment. And for me, that's like, you know, I'm okay, and mental health doesn't have to be a burden on me every day. And that helps, and that might not work for you, and I don't know, I haven't really seen this either way on like Twitter or people's blogs, so I really don't know kind of if that's the majority, or if it's if that's even something any of you can relate to, but that's certainly how I kind of approach conversations. So just come up as and when needed. I think one of the different things for me that maybe you don't have is people already know. Because I'm here, I'm on YouTube for all to see, and something keeps flying in my eyes, sorry. I'm on YouTube, I'm here for all to see. I've got a website which is under my name, so if you like Google me, it comes up. So it's not exactly subtle. So I feel like, I guess it's more understood because I don't need to have the conversation, and then people then start questioning like, oh, I didn't think there was anything wrong. You look fine. Those kind of comments don't really apply to me because people know I'm not. And I guess in a different situation, coming out of the blue and saying, actually, I'm not fine, when the person who you're talking to would have believed you're absolutely fine up until that point, is kind of rather different to my situation, whereas everyone pretty much knows, or if they are like, hey, can I follow you on Insta? And then they go on my Instagram and they can see it in the bio. So it's, it's not really something that most people who I would be on that level with don't know. And for me, that's really helpful because it means I don't always have to approach the conversation, decide who to tell and who to not tell, and kind of, you know, do the kind of, I guess, logistics of the conversation. Obviously, I'm not advocating you go and start a mental health blog at all if you don't want to. It's just, in my experience, that's kind of another reason why it's helped me. Oh, that was quite a long tip. That's only the first tip. That seemed like it took a while to get through. My second tip is not to rush the conversation. And this kind of comes back to how much you want to tell. And actually not rushing through the conversation is that this doesn't have to be your only conversation about mental health. I mean, you can go back over things, you can give more details as and when you feel comfortable. You'd never advocate kind of sitting down to have a mental health conversation all in one sitting, because things are always going to change, you're always going to be in different situations, and, you know, things are going to be fluctuating on the day-to-day basis. So actually there is no kind of sit down, let's talk about my mental health, let's get it out in the open, over and done with. It doesn't really work like that. And I think trying to kind of rush, I've got a mental health problem, just list everything out and then end of conversation, move on, doesn't work for me. And it's probably best you slow down and actually, you know, say what you feel comfortable with and then come back and talk about it another time, because you can always have more than one conversation about mental health. The third tip is kind of similar to that, which is talk about what you're struggling now. And what you're struggling with now, I mean, what the other person you're talking to probably could expect from you. And having a mental health conversation for me is about getting things off my chest, but also letting the other person know what to kind of expect, what they're getting themselves in for, we might say. But actually doing that means they're actually in a better position to help, because they can, they know. So if you suddenly don't text, they don't worry, because they know you're not okay and they're just going to hopefully leave you and give you some space. Kind of works, kind of doesn't. But actually trying to get it to work, for me, matters. So actually saying, you know, I might not respond for a while and then not texting for a while. You might have your own things that you do that your friends may be concerned by, your friends may not know what's going on, your friends might even think you're a bit weird for, and actually putting those up front and talking about the kind of now is just really useful, because then you don't have to like try and explain every single thing, because you've said it all, and hopefully your friends are like, yeah, this is you're okay, you're just having a moment. And hopefully that works. Depends on the friends, depends and the kind of what you do, but hopefully, for me, I find that helpful, because that's not necessarily something that's known. While I talk about mental health a lot, I don't really put out there the kind of day-to-day, how it affects me, and yeah, I feel like, you know, that could be useful. My fourth tip, which I should have made my fifth tip on here, is it's okay for it to be difficult. And the first mental health conversation you have, especially if you've like never had one before, and the people don't know, that they wouldn't expect to see, so you're kind of good at covering it up, or you blame it on other things, what you're going through, like, oh, I'm just tired, or things like that. Actually, the first mental health conversation will be difficult, and you're you're sharing something personal to you and something that's part of you, really, because mental health affects like all of you. So you're sharing a bit of you in this conversation, and you're allowing others to get really close to you and close to your thoughts, and that can be quite difficult, and you may put in place kind of boundaries, so you only tell some people some things and other people may know a little more. So for example, your family may know more than your friends, and you might be in a different situation, but it depends on who you feel comfortable with, and knowing that you don't have to tell everybody everything, and not actually, it's okay to hold some information back. The fifth tip is expect questions, and I think when people DM me, and because I'm a mental health advocate, which means people kind of DM me with stuff, and I never would ask questions about like previous abuse or like PTSD, because I'm not in a place through a phone to create a safe space to actually kind of talk to someone about those kind of feelings. So I'll try and steer the conversation away from them, because they're intimate and they're close feelings, and some things you don't have to share with everyone. You can have, say, a doctor, a psychiatrist, your parents, who you tell more to than, say, me, for instance. And that is it. That's kind of my last two tips, and really important tips, actually, as kind of a safety element on that as well. I hope I got those across in a way that didn't sound too like me telling. I didn't want to sound like your mum, really, or your dad. Should have said your dad there, shouldn't I? Didn't want to really sound like your dad on that, but it's important to kind of keep the oversharing in mind, especially when you're saying things about mental health. So, part 2 then is for those who are listening to a mental health conversation. Excuse me. So part 2 then, for those listening to a mental health conversation. And my first tip is, it's okay not to know all of the answers. And I think when it comes to mental health, we can try and think we understand it, but in thinking we understand something we probably don't understand, we're actually kind of creating our perception of what the person should or shouldn't do. That can be quite problematic. So, for example, I have anxiety, but I rarely get panic attacks, like hardly ever. I can't even remember when my last one was. We're probably talking over a year ago, and that I've only had a handful. So when talking to people, they might think, oh, do you get panic attacks and, shortness of breath and a quickened pulse and all the rest of it that comes with that? And, then when you start going for a run and then you're breathing heavy on the phone and it's like, are you having a panic attack? And it's like, no, I'm just out for a run. And I feel like mental health doesn't have a definition. So what you read about mental health is applicable in most but not all situations, and everyone goes through something differently, and trying to be accommodating by being like, oh, I know what you're going through. I know what you're going through. I can help here. Actually can make things worse, because then you actually don't know, and that can come across as annoying at best. And like, it's okay not to know all of the answers. Don't think you've read an article about, say, on the NHS website for anxiety, and now, I know all the answers about it. It's okay not to know, and it's okay not to know how to respond either. And actually, by telling yourself that you don't have to know all the answers, and what you say is probably going to be wrong, and that's okay, because it's very difficult to get right, and simply just by listening and, showing empathy, and that's really, if that's all you can do, then that's still good enough. And I think that's something really important as well, is that kind of, there's two things there, but you don't need to know all of the answers, but don't try and act like you've got all the answers either, which kind of leads into you're not going to fix them. And I know it can be tough, especially if it's someone like a close friend who you don't want to see suffering, and you want them to recover. You can't fix them, and you trying can make it worse. So the kind of request to go out. So keep asking someone, hey, do you want to come out? Do you want to come out? Come on, it'll be good for your mental health. Come out with us, etc., etc. But you can't stay inside. That's bad for your mental health. You need to come out with us. This will help you. That the kind of the persuasiveness there, and trying to fix them, or trying to solve the problem, or trying to work it out in their head isn't really going to work. Chances are you're not a trained professional, you're just a friend, and it's okay to be in that role. It's okay to be a friend that's there, a friend that someone can talk to, a friend that can help out. But you can, and you kind of have to take that step back as well. And it's okay to be limited by that. Having friends is still important, because, I mean, for me, despite professional help, it was really friends and kind of the community, I guess, that pulled me through in the end. And neither really works for me without the other. So don't just fulfill your role as a friend, as a family member, and you want to make everything right, and you can't, and that's going to be hard on you, but you can still do your bit, and you can still do your best there. And this kind of goes into my next tip, which is remember your own mental health too. And actually, if you are not in a good place yourself, and you're, say, maybe hearing too much, which often can affect you, and that can build up all too quickly, especially mental health bloggers and advocates, like, in the community. We've got, like, people come to us and talk to us, and this can have an effect on our own mental health too. And we love people. I love people talking to me and trying to be there as a friend, but I can't do that all the time. And actually saying to yourself, I need to take some time for me, and I need to kind of chill and take a step back from this almost. I'm getting too wrapped up in it, and I need to kind of pull away and maybe put that boundary there of what I feel comfortable with, because ultimately you've got a mental health too, and that's also important. And this kind of goes into Mental Health Week, which we've just had in May, which is, you know, when doing kindness to others, you be kind to yourself as well. And I think, especially I notice people on Twitter saying, and they're so open and they're so caring towards others, but they never take any time for them, and actually taking that step back can help your mental health as well, which is important, and you should work on your mental health as well. And actually letting them go at their own pace, which is kind of number 4. And this comes back to the asking questions. So when someone's asking you like questions, and I was saying that, you know, you might not want to answer them, this is kind of my request to you as the person asking the questions, to let the person go at their own pace. Of course you can ask questions, and of course you're not going to understand everything straight away, but don't kind of try and pry too much in or try and get a lot of information out in one go. Actually letting someone go at their own pace, doing so in a way that they feel comfortable with, is a lot better for them. And I've found that actually being pressured into something, I'm less likely to open up. So actually taking a step back and realising, you know, it's okay, they'll tell me when they're ready to, and actually kind of taking more of that stand is probably better than just going in, hey, tell me this, tell me more. And my final tip, I'm rushing slightly because I've just seen the time, my final tip is be normal. May this be a request to you all, please, be normal. And by that, what I mean is, don't start treating me differently because you know about my mental health. I am still the same person that, you know, I was before I had the conversation. I can still go out, I can still shoot you on Fortnite, I can still do all the things I could do before, and don't treat me differently. You know, whatever kind of you're into and what you do with your mates, still do those things. Mental health may affect how you do it, but you'll find things that you enjoyed with your friends that they still enjoy just because they've got mental health, and they can still, even if they're, say, suffering from depression, they can still enjoy things and still take part in things. They might not be able to do everything you want to do, and you may need to kind of tone back slightly the requests, like, hey, come and do this, hey, come and do that, when they're not in a good place. But don't kind of shut us out. That's kind of my final request, because at the moment we are the same people we were before we had this conversation. I am the same person. I will still come outside with you. I will still, you know, do things. But mental health means I might not do them as much, or I might have to leave early, or I might change my mind last minute, or I might say, actually, I need to stop doing this and just kind of leave somewhere. And that's okay, but don't just suddenly change or feel like you have to walk on eggshells or wrap us up in cotton wool. Just be normal and be guided by what the person with mental health, kind of low mental health, is telling you that they need. Just listen and actually make the adjustments, but don't do your own thing, really. Try and be led by them and what they want to do and what they don't want to do, and try and do it in a way you both feel comfortable. And you're not going to feel 100% comfortable, I get that, but have the conversation and live your life the way, kind of, in a way that you both can feel comfortable. Chances are you're not in a professional position, but you can still be there, you can still listen as a friend, you can still, you know, be empathetic, you can still go around, make a cup of tea, you can still, you know, even if you go around, have a cup of tea and just, you know, sit down and talk or watch TV or something. I mean, that's still, it might not be the kind of going out stuff, but you can still do stuff together. And actually finding those things that you can do, even through mental health, is something that's really helped me on my journey and has helped me recover quite a lot. And there we go. I hope you found this episode of Mental Monday helpful. We'll be back next week, which, quick check on the calendar, which is the 6th of July. We shall be back with another episode of Mental Monday, talking all things mental health, as we have done so for the last 35 minutes. I hope you found this helpful. Let me know what you think of the going down to once every other Monday. And if you need anything, I am on Twitter at Jake S. Writes, or my website, which is myname.com. So there we go. That's the end. If anyone wants to say anything, now would be the time to do so. Haven't had anyone pop into chat, so a bit of a lonely chat today. And I've got my website linked in the description. I'll go and change the thumbnail, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. If you need me in the meantime, text me on Twitter. I will reply. If I get a lot of messages, I may not be able to reply straight away. I'll try and reply that day. I do all my own messages, so you'll actually get to speak to me. And yeah, I hope you're all staying safe and well and enjoying your newfound freedoms as non-essential shopping. If queuing in Primark for hours on end is your thing, then enjoy it. Meanwhile, I'm still at home shielding. Think of me, please. And I will be back not next week. So used to saying that. I'll be back week after next.